Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com and Celebrity Spokesmodel for the ClassicsToday.com shop, where you can get this fabulous Make America Classical Again t-shirt. So go over there and have a look, or check out the link in the description of this very video where you can find all kinds of cool merchandise. The fact that Christmas has ended is irrelevant. You need it anyway, so what the heck? Now, today, with this very video, we are starting a new series. It's called How It's Done. I originally wanted to call it How It's Made, but that's been taken, and I don't want to get into trouble with people who may have copyrighted the name. So this one is called How It's Done, or How They Do It. In this series, what I'm going to do, what I propose to do, is take one brief passage from one work by somebody and really take it apart instrumentally. Look at the orchestration, look at the score, look at how the extraordinary sound that the composer produces gets made. I think this is a very interesting thing. I hope you do too, because what I would like you to do is propose your own ideas for special passages that you want to look at. And I'm talking about individual sounds and sonorities. I'm not talking about the third movement of something or, 55 bars of something else. I'm thinking of sound and texture, something that does not get a lot of attention in discussions about music, but just looking at your comments and looking at the things that we discuss when we talk about these works and what we listen to in performances, we're listening quite often for specific sounds in favorite passages. And it's amazing how conductors do it. The most recent one we've discussed, you may recall this, is when we were talking about Sibelius's Lemminkainen Suite, the very opening chord. It's just a simple chord for four horns. But the way that chord is spaced, the register, it sounds like nothing else in the world by anyone. And it immediately sets the tone, that legendary, once upon a time, fantastical piece. And it's just a simple chord for horns. That's the kind of thing I mean, the kind of stuff I'd like to talk about and share with you. So if you have your suggestions, please let me have them. In the meantime, I'm going to get us started with the climax of the Adagio of Mahler's Fourth Symphony. Now, this particular passage has so much fascinating stuff going on in it. And it just sounds like a big, loud chord. It's just, wah, it's a chord. A noisy, loud chord, right? Wrong. It's much more than that. You see, Mahler's Fourth presented a particular problem for the composer. The problem was this. It is the only symphony by Mahler, and in fact, one of the only symphonies by anybody between the death of Beethoven and the neoclassical period that does not use trombones. It has a very small brass section. It's three trumpets and four horns. That's the brass section. And Mahler wanted to write this volcanic, eruptive climax. And he even said, I really would have liked to have trombones for that climax, but I didn't use them anywhere else. And so I wasn't going to bring him in just for that one passage. I mean, in his own way, Mahler was a very practical guy when it came to scoring. So he had to find a way to create the most sonorous, brilliant climax he could without trombones. And this is what he came up with. Let's just listen to it. We have the Czech Philharmonic, conducted by Václav Neumann. This is a particularly fine example of this climax in that you hear everything particularly well. So here is the passage in question. could not be more brilliant and fulfilling, could it? But it is not merely a big, loud chord, particularly this bit, just the chord bit before the trumpets come in and all the other stuff starts happening. Just this part. It's like, what, 5 seconds of music, maybe. But you'd be amazed what's going on there. Now, I'm going to put up the score, and you can take a look at it. Here it is. Now, the part we're looking at is actually a little bit into it. It's only like 3 or 4 bars long, the whole passage in question. But this is the second bar because there's a very inconvenient page turn right after that initial loud outburst. So this is what you're looking at. Look at the string parts. Just look at those string parts. It's kind of fascinating. First of all, I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of music out there, calligraphically. It would make a great poster, wouldn't it? It's just beautiful. But what the violins are doing, all the strings are doing, is arpeggiating. They're just playing an arpeggio, up and down the notes of the chord, but in different times. You'll see the second violins are doing it in triplets. Everyone else has it in sixteenths. But the result of that, if you listen carefully, is that it's not a static chord at all. It's not just blah, with everybody holding the same note. It's moving. You hear it churning. I'm going to play it for you again. Just the chord part. Listen to this. Now listen carefully to the strings, and you can hear the movement. It's like a roiling sea. The waves are churning at the top of it. Listen again. Did you hear it? You see what I mean? And meanwhile, all of the rest of this stuff is going on. You've got that harp glissando going whoop, and then, it's up and down, and it's doing all kinds of stuff. And the trumpets do their thing, and then the horns come in, and then the timpani with 2 sticks are going bum, 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 like that. I mean, it's fascinating. But also, if you look at the score, you'll see the wind parts all the way at the top. They're all the way at the top. I don't know if you can see my hands because the score's there. I'll be doing it this way. Up there, the wind parts, fascinating. They're playing piano. Everyone else is playing as loud as they possibly can. And they attacked, along with the timpani, with a big, loud bang, on the opening chord. And then they immediately make a diminuendo. Because what Mahler is doing, and it's such a brilliant thing to do. Remember, he doesn't have trombones. He can't make it volume-wise as loud as loud as possible, maybe as loud as even people expect. So he has to create the illusion of it being louder all the time. And the way he does it is by creating a series of loud events that happen successively. So your ear never gets fatigued. It never gets tired of the actual sound that the chord is making. Rather, you keep hearing things moving, things under the surface. You hear the harp go whoop, then you hear the trumpets come in. And then instead of having the cymbals and the bass drum all at the same time, he spreads them out. It's bum, bum, crash, boom, like that. So that by spreading out the noise, you get more of it because it comes in succession. And they're very different noises, a high noise and a low noise. It's incredible, the care and detail that Mahler has put into this 3 or 4 bars of music just to create the maximum intensity and volume and fullness. And volume is not just a matter of decibels. It's a matter of richness and fullness of sonority. And by having the strings arpeggiate instead of just holding a chord, he's creating resonance throughout the entire range of the instrument. And that makes a much fuller sound than it would if they were just holding one note all the time. There's so much going on in this little bit of music. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. So I'm going to take the score down now. Bloop, there it goes. And I want to play you one more time the entire passages. And now let's think about the roiling strings, the harp glissando, the trumpets coming in, then the horns coming in, then the timpani coming in, the cymbals first, the bass drum second, the constantly changing dynamics, all within the very, very loud basic dynamic that creates constantly changing textures. Listen for all of those things. It's an unbelievably brilliant moment and the work of an orchestral genius, which even people who don't like Mahler admit he was that. He certainly was that. So here it is again with Václav Neumann and the Czech Philharmonic on Supraphon. And that, my friends, is how they did it, how it's done, how Mahler created an amazing orchestral climax without trombones, without even using the heavy brass for the initial chord. It's really, really extraordinary. And we're going to be doing more Mahler for sure, and lots of other composers. No rush. But if you have sounds, if you've heard things when you listen to these pieces that really strike your fancy and you're curious about how they do it, and you don't feel like reading scores or looking around, I'd be happy to explain it to you. I think it's just the coolest thing in the world. It's so much fun to take a look and see, what the wizard is doing behind the curtain as we're listening to the music. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you so much for joining me on this new journey. Take care.